Hi, this is Preetha and welcome to Dakshin Curry. I'm sure you would have heard about Pachdi. Now, usually whenever we say Pachdi, we are going to compare it to curd paste. Today I'm going to show you a Pachdi which does not use curd at all. To know more, stay tuned. So like I told you, this is not a regular Pachdi or a raita. You will know why. Today we are going to be making tomato pachadi. Tomato pachadi is very commonly found down south in festival menus on the banana leaf. It has its position just next to the raita. So let us not waste any time and let us have a look at the ingredients. The ingredients required are 1 cup of tomatoes. I have used around 4 medium-sized tomatoes. Along with that, the other ingredients are around 1.5 tablespoon of dates. These are seedless dates which I have just crushed. 1/3 cup of sugar, a little bit of cashews and raisins, a small cinnamon stick to add that add-on flavor, some water to cook, and last but not the least, ghee. We are going to be using very little ghee in this recipe. So let's not waste any time. So let's start. And we are going to start by cooking the nuts, the raisins and the cashews. I am adding very little ghee, around 1 teaspoon in a pan. I'm going to allow it to heat up, and in that I'm going to be adding these raisins and cashews. Some people like it whole, I like it uniform, so I'm not going to sit and chop, just crush it and wait for the ghee to heat up. Let me see if the ghee is hot. So once your ghee is hot enough, we'll add the raisins. Now if you want, you can be a little high on ghee also, but I feel that you should only add as much as is required in the recipe. Now as you can see that the raisins or the sultanas are fluffing up, they are getting cooked, and that's the time for you to remove them. You don't want to burn them. At the same time, I'll be adding the cashew nuts and quickly removing the raisins. Go, there's one left there. So now I'll also saute the cashews. Again, I don't want them brown, just a little color on them. You can see that we already achieved that. You can do this step in the end also, but why I'm doing it in the start is because I'm going to be adding the tomatoes in the same pan. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little more ghee and I'll dunk in the tomatoes. Now it's time to cook this. Now what we have to do is first we will be cooking this and allow it to cook in its own heat, and only after it's mashed or it is softened a little will I add little water. Now you can say this is more like a jam, more like a tangy jam because of the tomatoes, depending on the ripeness of the tomatoes, it's going to be that sour and the sugar is going to add the sweetness to it. Now usually in the weddings you will see that they serve it in very small quantities because it's usually not had as a main course but just as an accompaniment, like you would have raita. But I suggest that you should innovate and you should try having it with chapatis in a roll, try having it with bread, on toasted bread. Now you must have noticed that I have not added the cinnamon. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the cinnamon when I'm going to be adding the sugar. So if you want, you can add in the cinnamon right at the start, but I wanted subtle flavors to be absorbed, so I'm not going to add it in the beginning. Now as you can see, the tomatoes are softening a little. They are firm but they are just starting to soften, and at this point of time what I am going to do is add the sugar. I am adding 1/3 cup of sugar. What you can do is, if you want it to cook faster, you can grind this once in the mixer Now ensure that you're not going to cook this for long, because if you know, sugar cooks pretty fast and it can get caramelized. So then instead of getting a pachadi, you'll get something like a chikki. So you have to be very, very careful. You have to mix this well. As you can see, it's getting a nice color because the sugar is caramelizing. So even the color is darkening a bit. Now at this point of time, I'll be adding little water around the same level as the sugar that I had taken, and I will be adding a cinnamon stick. Now what I'm going to do is, once the cooking is over, I'll be discarding this. What you can do is probably put it in a muslin cloth, you know, like a potli, tie it and just dunk it in, and then just remove the muslin cloth once your cooking is done. But because I'm just adding 1 or 2, I will dig them out and remove it. Now once you've added the water, all we need to do is allow it to simmer and thicken. Now the water is going to get reduced, the tomatoes are going to soften, they're going to become like a pulp, and at this point of time I'm going to add dates. Now like I told you, dates are optional in this recipe. I'm adding it because I feel it's a good way of adding nutrition to the recipe. You can completely avoid it if you want. Add the dates. We don't usually make this at home. Usually you stick to your sweets and you stick to your basic raitas. Maximum at times you can make a manga pachadi, that's mango pachadi, wherein you're going to use mango. But here you can see that a fruit like tomato is also being used to make something which is sweetish. You can also make this with amla. Amla is another variety, that is nelika, that they call that nelika in Tamil. So you can make it with that also. But this is one of the very rare things that people usually don't make at home. So what we are going to do is, now we are going to allow it to simmer, you know, till it becomes more like a jam and it loses out on its texture. Some people don't like the chunks of tomato to show, so what they do is, you know, they just blanch the tomatoes and they peel off the skin and they puree it and then they use it in the recipe. That becomes like a very, very fine paste. But I like a little bit of character, you know, it's going to have a little bit of shape. It will be mashed but yet it will show. Like you can see, even in this the tomatoes are cooking but they are still holding their shape. Okay, now as you can see, it's reduced. It's become nice and gooey. Now it's ready to serve. Wow, so can you see our tomato pachadi is ready, and this amazing glaze that it has because of the caramelization of sugar, it's lovely. If you don't want to use sugar in the recipe, what you can do is you can use half a cup of jaggery instead. So please try the recipe. I am eagerly waiting for your feedback. Do not forget to subscribe to India Food Network, and until next time, it's Preetha signing off. Bye.